Real quick, I'm James Falk. This is Neon Galactic. We're a production of Keat TV out of Eureka, California. So I actually get to do this as part of my job, which is awesome, and I get paid for it. And I think that represents something important.
Yes.
Anyway, so I had met Kevin Day, like we talked about, and I went up there and he introduced me to this group that he sort of consults with over email. And I think that there's projects and stuff involved and good friendships. And your name came up, and you're a professor at Citrus College down in Lower California, right? What city is that in?
Yeah, it's in Glendora, California, which is about 20 minutes east of Pasadena in the San Gabriel Valley.
Okay.
Citrus College. Yeah, I've been here a long time. I'm actually a distinguished professor of history, which really just, it sounds like a real esteemed title, but it just means I've been here a long time.
Yeah.
If you're here a long time, you get some kind of special title. But yeah, I've been here over 25 years. This is my 26th year teaching.
Wow. Well, I think
here.
staff like that is important for the quality of an institution. So you're probably one of the anchors there.
Yeah.
Given the place its gravitas.
Or you might say a dinosaur. So, but that's
well, that too.
That's a different. Yeah, exactly.
Those are also important.
Yeah.
So basically what we're talking about, what I've been talking about on the show in the past has been UFOs, UAPs, the mystery surrounding that. But the more I've done research, and this has happened way before the show started, but to sort of bring the viewers up to speed, of course, that's what I came into the subject for. And then I get opened up into this wide world of esoterica, a little bit of the occult, a little bit of like just verisimilitude. I mean, just this strange universe. And I can't, it's almost, it becomes obsessive. Like you dig deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah. Like I couldn't have told you who Gurdjieff was, a year ago. And now I'm reading one book after another of anything I can find, whether it's Uspensky. I'm sure you know who the whole Russian mystic guy, right? And so that kind of journey is what I've been on. And so it's interesting to tie all that together with the UAP stuff. And I know that you're a scholar and that you've written books on the subject, one of which I was able to read before the interview with Timeless, which is like basically a travelogue of paranormal events. And it's really great. I mean,
thank you.
And to me, some of the instances aren't necessarily what you would obviously consider like lightning bolts from the sky, hugely, like revelatory experiences, but they're like sparkling moments, Anyway, so I guess
just wait till you read the other 3 books, and then see the reason I started off a little bit. It's like I wanted to dip my toes into it because I was resisting telling these stories officially.
Yeah.
Until I had a very profound experience in 2016 and was encouraged to write these books, and the person who encouraged me is passed on. So it was in a vision. A friend of mine, Gene, told me it was time to tell my stories, and I was afraid because I thought I'd lose my job. And he said, "Don't worry about it. You wouldn't believe it, but people are they're ready." So Timeless was dipping my toes. Timeless, Deja Vu, a few more even weirder things. Timeless, Trinity, the third one in the trilogy, let it all hang out. And then I went even farther with Anzar The Progenitor, where I focused on a non-human intelligence in particular. And it's a very thick book, so it's got a lot of research in it and my theories and what I think is going on. And then
Anzar, can you spell that for me? I want to put that in the link or in the description.
Yeah, Anzar, Anzar The Progenitor.
Okay, cool.
So a very cool title, but that's what he calls himself. But anyway, what we would now call an NHI, non-human intelligence that I'm in contact with. But anyway, so yeah, they get progressively more daring. So yeah, but Timeless, my favorite part of the Timeless, but the way I started it, if you remember the first line, it's not that I believe in ghosts, it's that they believe in me.
Yeah,
so I have no choice.
Yeah.
And I didn't, I was, brought into this paranormal world very early on, between age 4 and 5 in northern Norway. And it just opened up the doorway, opened up the aperture, and it's been a heck of a journey ever since. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, one thing that when I read the book, and it sounds like it accelerates, which I want to follow up on, and I definitely want to read the Anzar The Progenitor book. That sounds fascinating. As the non-human intelligence idea, the like with Philip K. Dick's Valis or whatever, it's like
Mhm.
always this happens commonly, kind of. I mean, and it's
Mhm.
interesting from what my experience so far. There's interesting correlations between the various, personalities, or I don't even know if that's
Mhm.
the right word. Um, but was there ever a point, I mean, and I don't know if maybe I missed this in the book, where you struggled against it? Like it didn't, I mean, in terms of this isn't happening, or were you able to, because I find with myself and my wife, we're trying to be more aware of things as they're happening,
Mhm.
and I find that I can find messages in my life, but part of me still is like, no, that's just this, or that's just this. Like,
Mhm.
for an example, we've been finding A's in the house everywhere. And in fact, I mean, like 10, 11, 12 that have shown up over the
Mhm.
past like month, right? One was the glass that broke and it formed a perfect A in the
Mhm.
cracks and in the hole. And today I found a mark on my dog that looked like an A.
Mhm.
Um, Now, partly I'm just looking for A's, but it's like I'm trying to give myself permission to engage that way. Did you ever have a struggle with that particular part of it?
Oh, sure. It's a struggle every time because we're taught from being, as soon as we go to school and are taught, oh, you can't talk about your invisible friends. You can't talk about magical things. You got to focus on things that we can see right in front of us or whatever. And so we're taught to dismiss that, even though kids are very naturally psychic, like ancient people, they're very close to the earth and all that.
I have
And
a story about my daughter where that totally
yeah,
panned
I
out.
mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing, but we kind of get it, not literally, but sometimes literally beaten out of us. It's like, okay, you can't believe that. So then we just dismiss it. And even me, who's had all these experiences, I still reach a point where I go, oh, that can't be right. I mean, that's just that. Okay, ghosts, yeah. Aliens, I don't know. So it's a struggle every step that you take, as you,
Yeah.
gain this consciousness. And I have a suggestion about the A. Maybe it stands for Anzar.
Well, there you go. And see, that would have been a
We're
precursor,
supposed to
like
meet.
time warps here too,
Yeah,
because
there we
before
go.
I even, well, my
I
wife's
just
name is
thought I'd
Amy.
throw it out there. Oh, okay, there you go.
So
That could be
so
it.
the A's been accounted for according to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
rules of the
more than
house.
likely. I would go with your wife's interpretation,
Oh,
yes.
I'll have to.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, you never really um my biggest struggle has been like just trying to figure out how to, for some reason my nature is that I want to have a physical theory, a an ontology that would explain
Mhm,
what we're seeing, right? And
mhm,
it seems like there's an ontology emerging, at least
mhm,
in the ashes of what was, in terms of people, as people try to come to terms with this. You hear a lot of the same information coming from whether it's
yeah.
mystical sources or it's scientists talking about the non-materialist kinds of worldviews.
Mhm.
Um, how does it work?
Well, I've asked Anzar and I've asked my spirit friend. I do these spirit walks where I do a meditative walk in the neighborhood here in a very kind of mystical place. It has ancient roots in it, but anyway.
Yeah,
So the short answer to that is that the spirit world, the alien world, so-called alien world, and the quantum world are all really the same thing.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
It's all the same thing. So it's not a mystery, really, when you think about it, that ghosts appear out of nowhere. And I've had plenty of ghost experiences. Aliens appear out of nowhere in kind of a kind of similar kind of way that ghosts appear, kind of in a holographic or fuzzy kind of image. They come and they go, and they can spirit you away, into these things and experiences and abductions and so forth. So they're popping in and out of this constructed reality. What I think that physicist David Bohm called the explicate order, which is the
yeah,
interface that we have, what we're doing right now. But if we, go into a meditative state or try to get into the implicate order, which is the real, how things really work in the quantum world, we catch glimpses of it. When we see a ghost, we're peeking into the implicate order. When
yeah.
we see aliens, or UFOs, UAPs, whatever, NHIs, whatever terminology you want to use, we're taking a peek into that implicate order. And then, of course, above that, according to Jack Sarafati, who's a big proponent of David Bohm, he's another physicist who, by the way, I think you're in contact with too, right? In
Yeah,
this
I've
chain of emails.
exactly
Yeah,
right. And
he's a cool guy.
he
Yeah,
is a cool guy.
the super
Brilliant.
implicate order. Yeah, brilliant. Yes. The super implicate order would be the mind of God, the creator, the one consciousness, whatever interpret, whatever people want to call it.
Yeah.
So and then everything else comes down from that. And what we have is an interface, kind of the way it was explained to me once by actually a computer guy. He was saying, when I got this computer in front of me, right? We have an interface, keyboard, all that stuff. We don't, what's actually going on is the toggling on and off of voltages, right? But we don't picture it that way. We picture it, oh, as a keyboard and images, but it's really something else.
Yeah.
And we don't see that because this is our interface. So it's kind of similar to the explicate relating to the implicate order, or
Yeah.
reality, if you want to say. So I think that's how it works. The way, I'm not a scientist, I'm a historian. I don't even call myself a social scientist. I prefer the term storyteller, as a historian.
Yeah.
And not that I'm telling tall tales, but, I'm just saying that that's the way I kind of look at myself. So, but I enjoy physics, I enjoy science, math, all that stuff. I was an
Yeah.
engineering student for a while, so I get it. I understand it to the best of my knowledge. I understand. So that's how I think it works in general. And but you have to kind of. The other thing is you can't be in that realm all the time. Otherwise, how do you succeed in this life? You have to deal with the reality. The explicate order. We have to go to work every day. I got to go water the plants. I mean, you got to do all that stuff, and you can also do the fancier stuff, if you have an opportunity to do so. So you really have to do both, and to be successful,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So that's how I think it works,
Yeah,
as far as I
that's
know.
fascinating. I was reading a book, and that's what I was looking at when you were talking. Was
Hmm.
this guy Bernardo Kastrup?
Okay.
He,
Yeah.
he wrote a book, Why Materialism is Baloney, and basically he's talking about how the universe is mind.
Hmm.
But that metaphor is the same metaphor that you're talking about. It's just
Hmm.
everyone uses slightly different, like
Yeah.
images or
Yeah.
imagine constructions in order to provide the details, but it always boils down to the same.
Yeah.
And again, the vibration elements and emanations
Hmm.
of the different,
Hmm.
it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So I mean, since I haven't read the Anzar the Progenitor, do you mind giving me the story about how that relationship came to be and
Yeah.
how you came to accept it? Because that seems like it would be absolutely mind blowing.
It was, and it came in steps. He is, in shorthand, I'll just say he's a non-human intelligence. He calls himself Anzar the Progenitor. The progenitor mean the one who started everything, the beginning, And
Hmm.
what he's referring to is he was one of the original contacts for Homo sapiens, for who we are, for humanity. And of course, we're talking about aliens, uh, people from other, in his case, he said his origins were in the Orion, constellation, and in God, how could I forget the name of the star group? It's the lower right uh, star in Orion. I always forget the name of it, but anyway, there's
Um,
like
I
a
think I've
try.
read
It's
about it in Graham Hancock, but I can't remember the name of
Yeah,
it
yeah.
either.
So but he says it's interesting because yes, that's where he originated, but we're all really connected. That's why he doesn't like the term alien. When I, you know, do my communication with him, he said, "How do you like to be called an alien?"
Yeah,
Because I looked it up in the dictionary. I didn't think about it. I looked it up in the dictionary. It's not very flattering being called an alien, So he prefers the term star family or star brothers and sisters, which sounds a whole lot like what the Aborigines say. In fact, that's basically what they
the
say, and
same
what Native.
terms.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the same terminology, and it's not surprising because they were closer to this than we are right now. I mean, we're just rediscovering what they knew, early on, thousands of years ago. But anyway, so that, and my experience with him, he's been with me my whole life, as far as I can tell, that from a healing experience in northern Norway when everything opened and I was saved,
yeah,
because
the
I was,
light that you talk about several times in the
yeah,
book. Yeah, okay.
yes. And, and saving me from a child predator in my neighborhood, a neighbor, who was, he appeared to me and told me, don't go there anymore. I told him he looked like a monster. And he said, well, the real monster is the one that lives in that house. So, but I didn't know he was necessarily an alien. I just knew that he didn't look like, my parents or, people around me. So, but I just accepted it because kids accept stuff, you know. I said, oh yeah, he was nice to me, and he's not a monster. And then a lot of miraculous things happened between them, but the most profound thing in terms of understanding who he was came in '97 when I had a vision of him. And if you've seen the illustration, well, maybe not in the first book, in the second or third book, you'll see an illustration based on my illustration of what he looks like. And he came to me and said he is the progenitor, and then he told me about how the universe works. You know, that basically uh, that a black hole is, it's like well, I guess you'd say a wormhole into the an other dimension where it comes out as a quasar, and then it starts again. You know, another universe, another dimension. You know, he's trying to explain all, and it's really high powered stuff that I didn't quite get at the time, but cosmological stuff. And but basically, he told me that I am connected to him, and that's all he would say. And then I mean, I saw him clearly. I drew an illustration of him. He was like revolving in space, you know, and he kind of looked proto-human in a way. And that's how I saw him. And I didn't connect with him again, at least formally or whatever, until after I had this experience with my friend Gene, who came to me after a month after he died in October 2016, and told me the time has come for you to talk about everything that's happened to you. People are ready. You're ready. So, and he says, you should call the book Timeless because where I am, there is no future, there's no past. It's all just happening all at the same time. You should call it Timeless. That explains it. And that kind of ties together the spirit world, the alien world, and the quantum world, because that's the way the quantum world works. It doesn't have what we have, linear time, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it made sense to me. And since that time, and starting in 2018, I guess, I've had regular contact with Anzar, and that's when he told me his name was Anzar. It wasn't just the progenitor. He said, I'm Anzar the Progenitor. And then he told me more about where he was from. And he started giving me advice, like before the pandemic. He said, be prepared for some, you know, kind of a prophetic thing. Be prepared for a series of cataclysms or a series of catastrophes that are going to happen and affect everybody. So my wife and I were really quite prepared when it all came down, when it happened.
Yeah.
And but more importantly, because you can get too caught up in that Nostradamus kind of thing, you know, it's like, oh, I can tell the future. He keeps telling me, well, you can't really, you can prepare, but you can't really predict because there's too many variables, because
Mm-hmm.
too many things can happen. You don't know which dimension you're going to, or which future place you're going to be in the timeline or in space. So it could come true or it might not, depending on where you're going to end up in this, what he explained as a fork in the road of time. You know, you don't know which direction you're going to go. But he
Yeah.
said what you can do is prepare for outcomes that could happen. That's the best you can do. And then since that time, with all this contact I have with him during these spirit walks, he's taught me something called assisted remote viewing. Remote viewing is something I know you're probably familiar with.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
We still do it, although the federal government says, "Oh no, we don't do it anymore." They're doing it like crazy, and so is
Well,
everybody else.
I think that
Yeah,
that is at root
yeah,
with this whole non-human intelligence disclosure stuff. I think they
yes,
found something on that side of it that has
yes,
got Christians freaked out, which leads to the
yeah,
whole Collins elite stuff. And then,
yeah.
but that's one
But
pet
see,
theory.
and some people are very talented in remote viewing. I mean, even without a non-human intelligence interface, I use Anzar because it's kind of like a shortcut. If I can use a shortcut, it's a little bit easier. So I'll ask him not what's going to happen in the future, what's going on right now. What is going on right now? What is to give you an example, what is Joe Biden looking at right now? Just
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
well, oh really? Is this what he's looking? Okay, what is he thinking right now? That kind of thing. He can help me see that. I mean, I not only hear sometimes, but I can see it. And now, granted, my connection to Anzar is not like pitch perfect, it's
Hmm.
still a lot like listening to an old radio that's not quite tuned in all the way. You can kind of, you don't, sometimes the signal line is really clear, other times not. So if there's ever any kind of mistake, I always say it's me, it's not Anzar. It's because it's really difficult to make these connections
Yeah.
and to make them consistently. That's why I do it at a certain time, usually in the morning. I always do it in a certain place where the connection to the implicate order is a little bit closer, which is on this place called Valley Center Road,
Hmm.
which is an old Indian trail up into the mountains here. And what kind of hammers that home, that probably that's a very magical place. The Freemasons have one of their temples right at the beginning of that road, and
Damn
those
it.
guys, they do a lot of ritual magic,
Sure. Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
don't and they don't just willy-nilly put their temples any or their whatever, anywhere.
They're
This
lodges,
is a
right?
very
Yeah.
is a very powerful place, and that's where I have a lot of connection. It's just easier to make the connection, kind of like getting the antenna just right on an old radio.
How did you find
So
that place? Was that just something, a
by
place that you knew
accident,
by
by
accident? Yeah.
accident, yeah, I just happened to like, wow, it's a lot easier here to make this connection than when I started doing these spirit walks, and it just happened to be close by to my neighborhood.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what he has done for me, and I've had one other person that has seen him, which is interesting. I don't think it's in the first book. It's probably in the third book, or maybe in Anzar the Progenitor. A friend of mine who's a member of CIRO, the Close Encounter Resource Organization. Her name is Lucinda Morell, and she is like a Native American shaman type person. And I was at a CIRO meeting, and I invited Anzar to come with. I told him, "Hey, can you come with? I want to see who can see you besides me." And I don't always see him, by the way. A lot of time I'll hear him, but I don't necessarily see him. But I said, "Can you come to this meeting?" And after the meeting was over, I didn't say anything. Then after the meeting was over, I said, "Did anybody see anybody behind me or around me during the meeting?" And a couple people said, "Well, I'm not really quite sure." And then Lucinda said, "Yeah, who's the big native looking dude behind you?" Like Native American looking
Yeah.
dude. And he has a proto-human kind of that kind of wonderful way that a lot of, ancient people look, and Native Americans and Aborigines, they kind of have that look to them. It's really beautiful kind of look to them. And he said he's really tall. He's like 7, I'm 6'3", and he's like over 7 feet tall. And, yeah, who is that native dude? And I said, "That's Anzar." And she said, "That's unbelievable." And then she pulled out her driver's license, and she lived on Via de Anzar. That was the name of her street that she since moved, but Via de Anzar, which means the way to Anzar.
Yeah.
And that's the
Wow.
only other person that's seen him. And I tell you, I had the same I was just like, "You're kidding me," you know, wow. And so,
Synchronicities, right? Wow.
yes, the synchronicity. So what are the chances that that could be, I mean, it happened for a reason, because she really did see him. So, and she's very, very intuitive and, very gifted. So anyway, that's kind of my connect. I talked to him this morning. So he helps me. He saved me.
Is it a kind of a, I mean, just trying to get the process
Yeah.
part right. Is it like I mean, I don't want to, not like worshipful, but is it like prayer kind of, or is it something where I mean, how
he
does it
he's
manifest?
very clear. He's not pretending to be a godlike
Sure,
entity
sure.
at all. So he's actually kind of humble, although
Yeah.
sometimes he's a little gruff. Uh, but he says that there is a creator, and that is, the hierarchy. Basically, what
Hmm.
Jack Sarfati says, the super implicate, implicate, and explicate.
Yeah.
He just happens to be in the implicate order, and he also says that I'm connected to him, so that, in other words, that I'm related to him. And
Yeah.
the really mind blowing thing is he says he's simultaneously in my future and in my past and in the present, and that he occupies all of that. So when people say, "Well, was he ever alive?" Yes, he still is, but in a sense that we, in our everyday life, we can't imagine that. Most people can't imagine that, how it continues like that. So he's communicating, and he said that the first time we really had that profound thing in '97. He said, I'm in your past, I'm in your future, and that's all one.
Yeah.
So that's how I connect to him, and it's yeah, it's not like a worship thing. I do have a certain
What
protection
I'm sorry, what
thing
I
I
meant
do.
by that was just
Yeah,
the like a prayer in terms of like you offer up a question and does he
yeah,
just step in to answer, I guess is what I meant. Not prayerful like I'm praying to God, but
yeah.
the ceremony or the approach of it, I guess.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I do have a certain thing that I do at the beginning. I have some protective, other protectors around me, kind of like bouncers at a club,
Hmm.
Theodora and Ozzy. And there are two other very interesting characters in this pantheon of characters in my life. And I ask for protection. I also, I ask, God for protection. I grew up in the Lutheran church, so I have that elements of that. And then I say I'd like to reach the highest level that I can possibly do, of vibration or consciousness, so I can communicate with the spirit world and with protection, and with the alien world with protection. That's very key. You use the protection word, because when I first started doing that in 2018, I didn't do the protection, and I was getting just some very disturbing things coming through.
Yeah.
Uh, so I need the bouncers at the door. And then I ask Anzar a question. Or sometimes he tells me before I even ask him a question. He'll answer the question before I even ask it. And so that's kind of how it happens. Sometimes I'll see him, kind of a faint image, maybe sometimes just his face or his eyes. Sometimes I'll just hear his voice. And I've actually tried to channel him. I don't like the word channel because it sounds hokey, but like, what do you really sound like? So let me speak like you. And I've recorded it, and it was in some ancient language. I played it for a friend of mine who speaks 6 languages. He's from the Middle East. He's from Iran, and he listened to it and he goes, "That sounds like ancient Egyptian." The way that it's kind of familiar. It sounds like from, the Middle East, but it's
Yeah.
really ancient, like Sumerian or something. And I said, wow, that's interesting, because I'm not making it up, but that's what I'm hearing. And so
Yeah.
I think what happens when I talk to him, it comes out, because I record everything on my phone. What I hear, I don't record his voice because it doesn't, show up on my phone. But I I hear what he's saying, and then I interpret it. So in this case, when I'm channeling, that's really what it sounds like, and then I process it and interpret it. And that's why I always feel like there's a chance that it could be misinterpreted too. So I got to be careful.
Yeah.
And
So basically,
anyway,
you are unconsciously deciphering a language that you don't know
I don't speak.
consciously. Yeah.
Yeah,
But you're able to, like, without thinking about it, basically write down or understand what
well,
he's
well, what I do
saying.
is I record it, and then after he says it, and then I'll ask him, okay, I know that's your voice or that's the language or whatever, but what does it mean? So I say I need help
Okay.
deciphering it. So I say what I hear him saying in this ancient language
Gotcha. Gotcha.
or celestial language, whatever. And then I say, what does it mean? And then he tells me, and wow, that kind of makes sense what he just said. And it sounds like that's what it would mean. So it's kind of cool. And I did several of those and recently. And I sent them to a couple of ancient language scholars just out of curiosity. And a couple of them just balked. They're like, yeah,
I'm not
no,
gonna
they
talk.
didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't tell me I was nuts, but you could tell the way they lay. Yeah, I've got some things going on. I'm kind of busy. Uh, so they wouldn't bite on it. So I haven't found anybody that can really interpret this stuff. But I bet it could be interpreted, other than my friend who speaks 6, languages, including Arabic and Kurdish and all this, stuff from the Middle East.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how the process works. And I always tell people who are interested in this kind of stuff, yes, you do have to learn how to turn it on, but more importantly, you got to learn how to turn it off, because you don't want to walk around with this mystical connection all the time. Otherwise, people are going to think you're rather strange. I mean, people probably do think I'm strange anyway, but you
Hopefully,
got to be
that's
able
a
to,
better
you got,
way to be, right? In my
you
opinion.
got, you got to be able to turn it off, so you
Yeah.
can enter the interface and do your everyday work. Otherwise, you're in this mystical realm, and uh, and some people can't handle it. I had one remote viewing guy tell me, um, you're as psychic as you need to be, which is kind of an interesting concept. If you can't
Yeah.
handle it, you should probably be careful, and because it might be more than you could. You might flip, and go, okay, now I can't get back, and I think that does happen to some people, that
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I think mental illnesses that
Yes.
often get or from that source. My dad
Yes.
was a paranoid schizophrenic, and I was never really
Yeah.
able to talk to him about his, symptoms or his
Yeah.
symptomology,
Yeah.
because he passed away. But I'd be interested in knowing, like, what. what he'd seen, and to see if there's any other interpretive lens to look through some of that stuff with.
I posed that question to a psychiatrist. I said,
Hmm.
is it possible that people that are classified as mentally ill, schizophrenic, that hear voices and all that, is it possible they could just be really, really talented psychics, but don't know how to re-enter this interface realm that we're in? And he looked at me and he looked kind of scared and he goes, that's a horrible thought. I mean, that is a scary thought.
Yeah,
And here's a psychiatrist. This is his business,
yeah,
medicating people and helping them. I mean, he's a really nice guy, but he hadn't thought about that. That maybe there's this they have this incredible psychic connection that they can't control. So
yeah,
you do have to learn how to turn it off. It's really, really, really important. Otherwise, you shouldn't be practicing turning it on if you
yeah,
can't turn it off.
yeah.
And
Um,
I feel for people that have the not able to turn it off.
well, and with schizophrenics, I often wonder if they are just getting like a blast of information from somewhere else and have
Yep.
no way to contextualize it, have no frame of reference, and so
Yeah.
it reads like insanity. Like
Yep.
people are after me because I'm seeing people in the corners of my eye doing things.
Well,
Um,
yeah. I mean, it's that is, as my friend Gene said, he said, Bruce, I'm gonna make it simple for you. It's all true. And I said, what's all true? He said, everything. I said, everything. He said, yes, everything. It's all true. And I go, wow, that's pretty mind blowing, Gene. And he had a great sense of humor. He was an actor, so I had to like check. Are you pulling my leg? No, Bruce, it's all true.
yeah,
And so it's come back, and Anzar says the same thing. He said, "Yeah, your friend Gene is right. It's all true."
yeah.
So,
That's what, as someone who doesn't, I think, have or has, I've had supernatural moments, I'd say, or what read
mhm.
as paranormal moments, and I'll throw one at you here in a second to
Yeah.
see if something you're familiar with. But I often I meditate daily, basically
Hmm.
now, and it's not that I'm looking for any of that stuff, but I hope that at a certain point when you start to change your consciousness or try to
Hmm.
dial down the ego and experience more of what,
Hmm.
the present moment and all that stuff,
Hmm.
if not manifests in a way where you have like suddenly psychic visions, at least that you are more intuitive,
Hmm.
on
Well,
the
it's a matter of accepting it. It really is, because
yeah.
as Anzar says, experiencing is believing, and believing is experiencing. So the more experiences you have, the greater your consciousness or belief system opens up, and the more your belief system opens up, the more experiences are attracted to it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
like I think it's Whitley Strieber who said that aliens, ETs, star family, whatever you want to say, uh, there's certain people they can kind of see that they want to contact. It's like they have a glow, or they have some kind of difference, and that's who they put their effort into. That's why they might stick with a certain family, for instance, because they have that ability to communicate with them more easily, because it's the path of least resistance. Same with
Hmm.
ghosts.
Yeah.
They're not going to bother trying to get through and talk to people who are totally don't want to even accept it. They're going to find that maybe people are kind of on the fence, or people that have had those experiences already, so the pathway is already developed,
Yeah.
and it's easier to talk to them. And that's what you find if you don't use protection when you go into these meditative open sessions. If you don't have gatekeepers, you're going to get flooded like starstruck fans trying to find a celebrity. They're just going to they could
They
actually injure
mob
you.
you. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they can mob you. Exactly. That's exactly what it's like. So you need the bouncers, and you need that protection. So
Okay, but if you're, I mean, someone
mhm.
who's interested in doing this sort of thing, how do you get a monitor if you don't even know how to, at what point how do you make contact in order to build the skills to recruit someone to be your guardian, or, what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like, it
yeah,
seems like there's a level of knowledge that has to be acquired before you can even begin to think about
that's
anything.
true. You have to be very careful. Baby steps. I was lucky in that it started early for me, and my mom was very psychic, so she trained me.
Hmm.
We would start with just the simple thing like playing cards with telepathy,
Yeah.
and we would read each other's minds, so to speak, and imagery, and we would get it much. The rate was much higher than chance. We would get it right. And
Hmm.
my dad didn't like it, and he would tell us to put the cards away because it scared him. It was the only thing he was scared of, because he had he was like a Alaska fisherman, the deadliest catch kind of guy. He was
Hmm.
in a Nazi labor camp in World War II. He had
Wow.
survived a lot. Tough
Wow.
guy, tough as
Yeah.
nails guy, a carpenter, a fisherman. But that scared him. He said, "Put that away. That's nonsense. That's foolishness." Or as he used to say, "Monkey business. That's monkey business. Put that away." And then my mom would we'd put the cards away, and then my mom would wink at me,
Hmm.
like, "We'll do this again later when Dad's not around." you know?
Yeah.
So I was, she was, and then she was the one who told me not to talk at school. She said, "I believe that you see these things, but just don't mention it to your teachers because something, it's not going to go well."
Yeah.
Because I tested it out in kindergarten, even as early as kindergarten, I found out, oh, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I better not say that, because some people, a real fundamentalist kind of religious person could say, "Oh, you're possessed or something,"
Yeah.
or it could just be they say you're mentally ill,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But
Labels,
yeah,
you know?
so find a very trusted person, whoever that is in your life, who already is in that world and
Hmm.
trusted. And I always trust the people who aren't asking for money, more than people who are. Although there are very talented people who are honest, who are making a living doing it, and I don't mind that. But there are a number of charlatans too. So
Yeah.
they're mixed in with the whole thing, disinformation, whatever, making money out of it. So it's the same with the UFO world too,
Of
and
course,
alien
there's
world.
always,
So you got to be really careful. But that's how I would start, and then start baby steps. You already do the meditative thing, so you're already in that realm. So it's just a matter of protecting yourself, putting up the radar dish, and start with just asking the very simple question: who can help me? Who is a trusted individual that can help me with this
yeah.
connection? And just
Yeah.
start, and just, it might be very faint. It might be like, "Hello, who are you? I'll tell
Yeah.
you next time." Whatever.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
could be very slow. So and be very careful every step of the way. So
Yeah.
that's
I'm going to explore. I'm still tepid in a lot of ways, but that's something I do want to explore.
yeah.
My wife has more talent than I do, as do I mentioned my daughter. We had done
Hmm.
those tests where you have the
Hmm.
star and um,
Yes.
I forget what that's called, but
The Stainer, whatever. Yeah, I know what
it's
you're
a
talking
certain
about.
deck, yeah, Stainer
Yeah.
deck or
Yeah.
something. But
Yeah.
anyway, she got like 7 in a row right,
Hmm.
and then like 5 in a row right after that, and
Hmm.
we were counting up numbers, and you know, uh everyone else in the family was clustered at a certain point on the scale that we
Hmm.
ended up drawing out, and she was like levels and levels above us.
Hmm.
And it's one of those things, yeah, it's anecdotal and it's just interesting, but it was like the way she rattled off the answers, there was a certainty about it.
Yeah.
It was a moment. And so I think that all that stuff should be privately explored if you're interested and want to learn more about it. I have
Well,
a question.
the
Go ahead.
yeah, the only thing I can say is you have to remove the analytical overlay.
Yeah,
The more
which they talk
educated
about
you are,
in remote viewing.
yeah, you have to remove that and just say, okay, if it sounds like nonsense, I don't care. I'm going to say it anyway. This is what I see. This is what
Yeah.
I think. This is what I feel. And usually that's right. That
Yeah.
is the right path. But we're taught to, do the analytical overlay. And
Yeah.
the older you are, the more learned you are, the more educated you are, the more analytical overlay you have.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
you got to take a chance of being foolish
Hmm.
and being wrong too
Yeah.
sometimes, because you're not going to get it right every time. Even the
Yeah.
best remote
And
viewers
there
don't
is
get
no
it right
right,
every time.
I mean, there's a right in
No.
terms of on target, but like you're just
Yeah.
trying, it's okay to fail, I guess is a better way to
Yes.
put it,
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
I did do I was at a conference last year and we did a remote viewing thing,
Hmm.
the hour and a half long clinic or whatever they had.
Hmm.
And the interesting thing was the first one that I did, I got a really close hit on,
Hmm.
but I don't remember drawing the part that was the hit.
Hmm.
Like I vividly remember everything else that I drew.
Hmm.
But there was this line that was like, kind of an angle and kind of weird, but
Hmm.
I mean, you're sketching, so that's not that abnormal,
Right.
but it just perfectly fit what the target was. That
Yeah.
there was, I mean, it was almost undeniable that somehow I had gotten this like signal, but I
Hmm.
didn't remember it, and I didn't remember making the motion to draw it out.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
little hints like that I
it's
get,
not, it's, yeah, it's not unusual. So it was more automatic. It was more almost subliminal or subconscious.
Yeah.
And that's why I record all my sessions, because I don't remember oftentimes. I did a couple at the beginning. Oh, that's fantastic. And then I come home and I go, what happened? And
Yeah.
because I would transcribe, I'd try to remember. And then oh, I got to start using my phone so then I can talk about it while I'm doing it. And I come back and I'll play it and I go, oh, really? I said that? Okay. And then I'll write it down. So I've transcribed the last since 2018,
Yeah.
more than 5 years worth of notes, about 300 pages or so now
Wow.
of notes about these connections. And so that's how that way I don't have to worry about trying to remember it. And then that puts analytical overlay. I don't try to make sense of it now. I'll
Yeah.
just say it and then I'll come back and relax and I'll just, and really the key to it is something called what Gene and Anzar have called focused calm. So you're
Hmm.
focused, but you're calm.
Yeah.
And I play baseball, and that's the way you approach when you go to bat. Focused, calm. You
Yeah.
can't be oblivious, obviously, but you can't be all tightened up like this. You got to be calm,
Yeah.
but focused.
Yeah.
And let it. And that's what they call being in the zone in sports. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, but
And
my wife and
it's
I often talk about that when you're doing something that you can do almost subconsciously, but you get into the flow of it. That's
yes, the
exactly the
flow,
word. Like even if you're a
creative
waitress,
flow.
you're just
Yeah.
moving things, and it's like you get to a point where you can. It's like a dance,
Yes, it
muscle
is.
memory.
And the same thing with creative writing. When you get into the creative flow,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a pretty amazing thing. Hours can go by and it seems like minutes. And then all of a sudden you get, wow, that's some really cool stuff. Then all of a sudden you reach a block. You go, oh, now I'm trying to make sense of it right now. Then
Yeah,
okay,
or
you
I'm
got
trying to make it better, which is
yeah,
often
trying to make it better.
like improve it, and that gets
Yeah,
me on the
yeah,
self-conscious. But I
yeah.
did have a question for you as a history teacher, if you don't mind.
No, don't mind.
It's interesting where we're at in this moment, in terms of, I say the conversations about UAP disclosure and,
Hmm.
whether or not these craft are nuts and bolts objects from either
Hmm.
another star system or, a breakaway civilization, or if it's foreign government, whatever. But I think that you believe, from what you've told me, and I kind of believe that maybe there might be something of a different nature involved here in terms
Hmm.
of just it being biological species from another planet, or
Hmm.
at least they're operating on several levels at once, perhaps. Uh, how do we make that transition in terms of like keeping sanity in society with that
Hmm.
kind of switch? And I mean, people talk about this like ongoing kind of evolution as we enter the new age of Aquarius or whatever.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
we're waking up to whether you believe that or not, there is a point coming where we have to divulge to folks, if it's true that this stuff is happening. How can we do that without chaos?
Yeah, well, Anzar calls it the era of reconversion.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him to explain that because at first I go, reconversion. When I think of conversion, I think of, I don't know, some kind of religious thing or whatever. But he said the era of reconversion is what we're in now. And what that is that we're taking the wisdom of the ancients, how they understood the universe and their connection to the star people, star
Mm-hmm.
family, and their knowledge of the earth, and mixing it together with our modern technology into a new era where we reconvert and we take the next leap in our evolutionary development, that which he calls a leap of consciousness. So it's consciousness which is fundamental. It's underneath everything. Everything is about consciousness.
Yeah.
Everything is built from it. And the theoretical physicists, from Jack Sarfati to David Bohm to Max Planck or whatever, they all said the same thing. Consciousness is fundamental.
Yeah.
And of course, the Buddhist monks say the same thing. So
It's all
it's really this.
converging. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what Anzar is saying. Now, there's resistance to it. Some of it is based on religion. Some of it is based on people wanting to hold on to power. Because if you start telling people that they have the ability, everybody has the ability, psychic ability, uh, people start to think they could lose power. Those in power feel like, wait a second, they're going to start knowing what we're doing,
Yeah.
you know, and like like for instance, it's very hard for me to I watch the news, but I see public figures talking and I look at them and I hear their words. But what I hear instead, I hear their words, but then all of a sudden I start hearing their intentions. So they might be saying, "Oh, I'm looking out for the people." I mean, what I'm really hearing is, "I'm just trying to grab power. I don't care about the people." That's what, I'm hearing their intentions along with whatever words they're saying.
Yeah.
So, and people in power don't want that to happen, so they're going to be resistant. Governments who have this, the crash retrieval, whatever you want to call it, and we're not the only ones that have it. They want to, what Anzar is telling me is they're reverse engineering to weaponize it. And he said what they don't understand is you can't weaponize it because we're not going to allow that. I mean, there are, bad ETs as well, and there are the good ones, to make it, it's kind of overly simplistic, but the idea is that this technology and wisdom is for the benefit of all, not the strategic advantage of the few. And those are
Yeah.
Anzar's words.
Yeah.
Uh, they're for the benefit of all. So we don't quite get it. So we've been holding, our government and contractors have been holding on to this technology, thinking that we can weaponize it and have a strategic advantage over our enemies. They're doing the same thing. Meanwhile, we could have used the knowledge and technology to make society better for everybody. We've been wasting time and effort, and people have been hurt and damaged, and even according to David Grush, even killed in trying to bring this information out, or
Yeah.
ridiculed. They've been, oh, you're crazy,
For
whatever.
sure. That stigma.
So
I mean,
so that's exactly what's going on. And I think people will accept it when they figure out it's a leap of consciousness, not a leap of faith necessarily, and and they will realize the benefit of it. It's just that we are maturing slowly and there's a lot of resistance. So it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be quick. And, I hear the term disclosure, but what Anzar tells me it's really needs to be revelation, not disclosure. Disclosure is other directed. It's like, I'm going to sit here and wait until the government tells me what the truth is.
yeah.
What you have to do is reveal it to yourself.
Ah,
What is the truth? You already know what the truth is. That's
yeah.
what Gene and Anzar tell me. I ask them a question, the guy, you already know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
What do you think it is? And I say, well, this. And well, yeah, exactly. It's revealed to you internally. It's from your soul, who you are as an entity. You know what the truth is. You know what feels right and what feels true. And you can't sit there and wait for somebody who may not have your best interests and probably don't, telling you what the truth is. And that's
Yeah.
the difference. When people realize that they have to trust themselves, it'll when they make that leap of consciousness, it'll be much better. Now, I'm not under the illusion that's going to happen quickly, or that there won't be trouble before we make that evolutionary step. It's going to be a tough road until we get there, but that's our only option.
Yeah.
It is our
It
only
makes me
option.
wonder about the people who seem incapable. And I don't
Yeah,
mean to be condescending necessarily, but there are people who aren't interested in that kind of like, I mean, I guess this maybe it's the kind of thing where the signs and wonders at some point become convincing or whatever.
yeah,
But if that kind of forced evolution is on people who have no natural inkling or
yeah,
enthusiasm for it, that could be
sure.
traumatic.
Well, yeah, just like the Luddites, during the Industrial Revolution, going
Yeah.
around smashing harvesting machines. They just, until they finally realize, well, there's nothing, okay, I got to accept it.
Yeah. I
Okay,
mean,
it is what it is now, whatever.
yeah, at a
But
certain point you get exhausted by the fight probably, and then
I,
people die off, which is another,
yeah,
over time.
yeah, and I do want to say, and I don't know how much time we got left or whatever, but it's also very dangerous to some of these people don't want me or anybody else, somebody like David Grush, he's being attacked left and right. I'm in contact with Ralph Blumenthal. I
Hmm.
talked to him because I'm very concerned about David Grush, what's going to happen to him. And he assured me that he has good counsel and that he's okay,
Yeah.
because they're attacking him, even using members of the press to attack him, saying, well, I got a freedom of information request in and I found out he's had mental health problems. I knew that was coming because when you have the truth and you expose the truth, those in power attack the messenger, not the message.
Of course.
Because,
Yeah.
yeah, they didn't even want to acknowledge the message, which
Yeah.
is we should really be focused. But instead of going, Oh, I see. He's nuts. He has PTSD. Well, welcome to the club. How many people in the military have PTSD? How many people not
And
in the
they got it in
military?
service to the government or to
Yeah.
our country. So at what
Yeah. I
point is
mean,
that like how do you use that against somebody, you know?
yeah. I mean, how dare they, right? And
Yeah.
they knew he had it, but they kept his job. He kept his highest level
Yeah.
security clearance. So I'm
Like
not
the
sure that.
highest. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but even myself, I just give you an example. I was going to be on another show, and I guess I could mention it. Jimmy Church, his
Hmm.
show, Fade to
Yeah.
Black,
Yeah.
and the night before I was going to be on the show, and I was going to talk about this, and I was, my own personal thing and my son's connection to this. My son is in the military, and anyway, he's at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which should tell you something
Yeah.
already. What I'm going to lead to here, but I was going to tell what's happening to him, and the night before, so like on August 1st, and my interview is going to be on August 2nd, somebody broke into our hotel room in Toledo. My wife and I were sleeping. My
Hmm.
wife woke
While
me
you were
up
sleeping.
while I was sleeping. My wife woke me up and said, "There's somebody in our room." And I was dead asleep, and I jumped up. It's like I went into my GI Joe mode.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
went to the
Fight or
door. The
flight,
door,
man.
the door's closed. I wasn't even thinking about danger. I just, I'm gonna get this person.
Yeah.
So kung fu fighting, whatever. And then I opened the door, and there's this dude in a construction worker's outfit. Like the orange and construction worker, or highway construction worker, right? And he looks at me, and I look at him, and he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." I go, okay. And then the door opens on the other side of the hallway, and there's other construction workers in there. And they go, "Oh, hi, Joe," or whatever his name was. I don't remember. And then he goes into that room, right? So I figure, oh, well, the guy just came into the wrong room. But how did he do that? How did he get into
How
a
do you do that? Yeah.
locked door? So I went the next morning. I went to the front desk, and I said, "I got to tell you something odd happened. Somebody got into our room in the middle of the night, some construction worker guy. He must have had a key to our room." "Oh, that's impossible, sir. Nobody has a key to your room." And I'm thinking, well, probably the maid does, right? But this guy
Hmm.
wasn't the maid, or the whatever people that fix the beds.
Housekeeping.
And
Yeah.
yeah, housekeeping. Sorry, yeah, housekeeping. So then I said, "Well," and then he went into this room on the other side. "What room was it?" And I said which room it was, and they looked, on their computer. "There's nobody registered in that room." "Oh, really?" "No, that's where they went, and there was others too."
A- And there was
And
no.
there was nobody registered in that room. So, and that was the day I was going to do the show, right? And so when I was doing the show in the evening on the second, it happened again. This time my wife was alone in the room, and somebody came into the room again. And she couldn't make it out. It was kind of a shadowy figure, but they went in and then they went out. And it could be a coincidence, or as one person said, maybe somebody's renting rooms off the books. Somebody at the hotel. That could be too, or it
Yeah.
could be some kind of intimidation. Like we're going to do weird things to you and make you think. Get kind of gaslight you or whatever, make you think it's something else.
Yeah.
And so, who knows for sure? But I asked Anzar about it, and he said, "Well, you know that yes, that people are going to intimidate you, and this was an example of it. And the people themselves may not even know why they're doing it. In other words, they're being directed. Oh, I'm going to go into
Ah,
this room, and then why are you going into that room? I don't know. Why did I go into that room? And
yeah.
then so just as an intimidation thing. But anyway, what I was going to tell um Jimmy was that, and I told him that night on the second, I told him that my son works at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and him and other members of his unit, and he's in the Air Force, right?
Hmm.
Security forces, became sick all of a sudden, all of them, like a lot of people in his unit, and his sudden, really dangerous illness, like heart problems and electrical problems with their heart and fatigue and kind of like a chronic fatigue syndrome kind of thing. They all became sick at the same time, and he's still suffering. He's not even able to work full time. He's on a leave of absence, and anyway, so they've been testing him and doing all these tests, and and I what I thought was the timing of it is kind of interesting because I think, and this is what I thought, and then I confirmed it with Anzar. I said, I think about 6 or 7 months ago is when the contractors who have all this material, all of this extraterrestrial material, knew that it was their days were numbered. They're going to have to quickly reverse engineer, do whatever they can, and then get it the hell out of there because Congress is hot on their tail to find out, to find this stuff.
Hmm.
And so I think what I suspected was that they had done that, and they had had a release of radiation or something on the base, and it made people sick, and they're keeping a clamp on it.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, that's kind of a wild theory, but let me test it with Anzar. And he said that's exactly what's going on. And
Yeah.
it's not just there, but other locations too, like up in Palmdale, the old Skunk Works, and
Yeah.
other locations, Area 51. They're getting that stuff. They're moved like a shell game, moving it
Yeah.
around, because then when Congress comes in all blustering, with the cameras, okay, we're going to find this stuff. Hey, there's nothing there.
Yeah. I
What
mean,
are you
it's
guys talking about? You guys are crazy. You know?
yeah. Well, I mean, that's why I think that I'm kind of this whole chase for extraterrestrial materials, crash
Mhm.
components and whatnot. I don't even think that's the question that we need to be worried about right now.
Mhm.
Like, I think we need to get someone on the record in government just to admit that there's possibly a non-human intelligence.
Yes.
That the technology that we're seeing is truly anomalous, and they have the videos. They have way more
Yeah.
than enough videos to
Yeah.
actually ascertain the truth one way or the other, but they won't show it to us. And
Yeah.
they say it's because it's classified, but the reason why it's classified is because they don't want to show it to us. So it's
Yeah.
just basically this circle jerk where
Yeah.
the real information isn't getting out, and we talk around it and everything else.
Yeah.
But the only real question is, could it possibly be something other than from a member of our, family of nations? And if
Yeah.
so, what is it? Everything
Yeah.
else can, I mean, people will accept crash debris after they've accepted that there's a non-human intelligence. Until then, for people who
Yeah.
aren't really paying attention, it kind of comes off as a joke, And I think that
Yes.
that sucks for the people like David Grush who have real knowledge of real things that they were told, and
Hmm.
perhaps more, but that
Hmm.
people won't take them seriously because they haven't gotten on board the first part that this is potentially another life form we're talking about, another form of intelligence.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to
I,
get there. How we get
I,
there.
well, what I forgot to mention was 2 weeks before this, uh, or I think it was the middle of July, I wrote to Senator Rubio, Senator Gillibrand, and my
Hmm.
two California senators, Feinstein and I know Senator Feinstein, she's in ill health,
Yeah.
but I wrote to her anyway, and I wrote to Alex Padilla, who's
Hmm.
took over our vice president's spot, became senator when she was a senator, and I wrote to all of them, and I told them, hey, I'm in communication with the NHI, and I think I could help get to the bottom of this stuff, and maybe you don't believe me, whatever, but I'm willing to help.
Hmm.
And I know we're taking this stuff seriously now. And it was after that, and then suddenly I was given an invitation to go on Jimmy Church's show just out of nowhere. I didn't ask to be on the show. People called me up, and then this weird thing happened in when we were on vacation,
Hmm.
and so I don't know if it's all connected. I asked Anzar about that too, and I said, did any of those senators people not like what I was going to say, and have some foreknowledge, or that I had sent these letters and now I'm on a do not trust list or whatever,
Hmm.
suspicion list, and he said it was Alex Padilla of the three, and my guess would have been, well, it's probably one of the other three, maybe Senator Feinstein, because I don't think she's in control of everything that's going on. The poor woman is very sick, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I thought, well, maybe it's one of her people going rogue and working with the defense contractors to try to silence and humiliate and intimidate anybody who wants to talk about anything.
Yeah.
And but Anzar said no, it's Alex Padilla, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know much about him really because he hasn't been senator very long. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's what they said. So obviously, I don't think they want me to be talking about this,
Yeah.
uh, but I have protection, so I feel okay.
Yeah.
Nobody hurt us. They went into the room, but who, if that's what it was, and I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But even though Anzar said that that's what it was, because people have plausible deniability if they could, it's kind of like the Manchurian candidate, kind
Sure.
of,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, if somebody gets, because there's a lot of mind control stuff going on here too. And that's why I call them the dark forces. And I know that sounds very dramatic, but that includes non-human intelligence that are, or aliens that are not, that are hostile, right?
Hmm.
It also includes humans who are in league with them, and it includes non-human entities like the more negative kind of stuff, like demonic kind of stuff. I think it all kind of is in the same grouping of wanting this kind of control
Yeah.
over us. And I've asked Anzar, what is this really about? What is this
Well,
conflict
that's
about?
yeah, I
And it
mean,
and he told me it's between free will and control.
yeah,
There are those non-human intelligences who love us and want us to grow and have free will. And then there are others who are saying, no, we want to use them. And the only way to use them is to control them. So
yeah,
it's kind of like the way it plays out in government, too. There are those that want to preserve democracy and liberty. And there are those who say, no, we need to tightly control the unwashed masses, or whatever. So
yeah,
it's kind of plays out at our level, too. And anyway, that's what I've been told about it, and through this assisted remote viewing that I do,
yeah,
and it's fascinating, and I'm really worried about my son, and I want to, he can't lead the charge himself because he has a very high security clearance himself, so there's stuff he can't tell me, so I have to kind of protect him uh, because not that he doesn't think it's possible, but just that, he has to be careful what he says.
yeah.
And, people like yourself who are in the media, I mean, if it wasn't for you guys, uh, heaven help us. I mean, the credible, honest people asking the hardball questions, trying to pursue the truth. I mean, that's what we need to, to get where and I understand national security. If there's something, like that, okay, yeah, but it's got to be balanced with the freedom of information that we need as a people, to realize if these contractors are playing games, which is probably why the semantics they use. The military is not in control of any extraterrestrial or
No,
any
yeah.
other. Yeah, well, no, it's
Arrow has never been
yeah,
informed about any
yeah.
credible evidence of, well,
That's
yeah,
because they're
okay.
defense contractors that are doing it. They're not government. They're government contract. It's like when they say we don't have any troops in this country or that. No, but we have government contracted Blackwater private contract.
Yeah,
Soldiers of fortune. So we can say, oh, plausible deniability. We're not doing that. It's those
exactly.
guys. So
Yeah,
that's the game they're playing and hoping that most people won't get it or
yeah.
understand it. But you just
Well,
have to
that's
scratch the
why,
surface a little bit.
yeah, and that's why I mean, like it seems like at this point the game has become proving that we have alien technology, and we can get beat there. We can get skunked, like we can
Yeah.
show up at the place and it can be gone. And
Yep.
like if the evidence currently exists to prove that this is something other than what we are normally dealing with in our collective reality, then that's the only thing that's important for people to know right now, because then we can
Yeah.
begin to open up the conversation. Until
Yeah.
then, three-quarters of the country isn't going to pay any attention at all. They just think it's going to be a bunch of
Yeah.
crackpots. And
Yeah.
that's broadening and that's getting better, but it's taking time. And
Well, if people are worried about their day-to-day survival, it's hard for them to ask the big probing
of
questions. And if you
course,
keep people at that level, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you keep them at
sure.
that basic level, struggling, fighting with each other over race or gender or economic conditions, for the scraps,
Yeah,
then you can control them, and then of course the easiest way to control people is through fear or anger. You keep
yeah,
people angry and fearful, and when we're angry and fearful, we're not very smart, and we don't use our frontal lobes, and we're not thinking deeply and in a smart way, and we're just reactionary, and like puppets, we become like puppets on a string,
yeah.
and that's hard to break free from that, it really is for a lot of people, and yeah, anyway.
Well, that's a good point to make. I'm out of time. I'd love to chat with
Yeah,
you again in the future.
sure.
I'm gonna read those other books, especially Anzar The Progenitor, and maybe I can have some follow-up time with you at some point. Or
Cool. Yeah, I'm open. I enjoyed our conversation.
me too. And also, if I ever have any questions about, your expertise, do you mind if I shot you an email?
No, no, yeah. And if you have questions for Anzar as
Yeah,
a journalist, I told that to Jack Sarfati too. I said, if you have any big questions you want to have me ask Anzar, then go. He
hmm,
hasn't taken me up on it,
yeah,
but I'm sure he will at one time. But I'll make the same offer to you. Any question, I don't care what the question is. If you have a question you want me to ask, I will ask him. I'll record the answer. I can even send you the recording of the answer, or I can transcribe it for you, whatever you like.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that could help.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I will take you up on that, I think. Let
Yeah.
me think of a good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. Okay. I know.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you
that's
get the author and you
interesting.
go, well, what do I ask? You know, okay.
Yeah, yeah, and that's cool.